I've been buying the newest Apple Watch every year since the original launched over a decade ago. And since 2022, I've also been buying a new SE each year to see how it stacks up to the flagship models. When I first put on the SE, I'm always struck by the size of the bezels and the smaller screen. It feels like a big step back from the series models that I'm used to. But here's the funny part. After a couple of days and getting used to it, I kind of forget that it's not the latest and greatest Apple Watch model. It does everything I need on a day-to-day basis, and I'm convinced for most people, it will be just fine. But this year I wanted to take things a step further, and I had my wife wear the Series 10 for a couple of weeks. She's a non-techie, but she's an avid wearer and a proud owner of the SE2. And after wearing the Series 10 for a couple of weeks, her entire review was, yeah, it's got a bigger screen, but my old watch is just fine. And then she just went back to her SE like nothing ever happened. The truth is, if you want the latest and greatest, the Series 10 is no doubt and absolutely the better watch. The larger screen, the always-on display, and the subtle improvements like the precise phone finding and fast charging are all awesome upgrades. But assuming you can get the SE2 for $200 on Amazon, is it really worth an extra $200 on top of that to get the Series 10? For most people, probably not. The SE remains the best value. And it's the watch that I've been recommending to all first-time Apple Watch wearers and all my friends and family. But if you're an existing Apple Watch owner or you're just someone who craves the newest tech, the Series 10 might be a better fit for you. And to help you decide, I'll break down the 14 key differences between these two models. Before going over the major differences, let's touch on the 10 minor ones. The first is iPhone finding. It's been a feature since day one of the Apple Watch, but the Series 10 has precise finding. Just tap on the phone shake icon and your phone will beep like normal, but the watch screen will show you how far away your phone is dynamically, just like an AirTag, which can be great if your phone is lodged in the couch cushion. The Series 10 has double tap just like the Series 9 did, and this feature is just a complete bust, but it was kind of marketed from Apple as being revolutionary. In theory, it should be helpful for stopping a timer with messy hands, but in practice, it's clunky and just easier to touch the screen. The Series 10 has the S10 chip compared to the SE's S8 chip, which is faster in theory, but in day-to-day usage, I never noticed a difference between these two watches in speed. However, the chip likely helps a little bit with battery efficiency, which we'll get into a bit later. The Series 10 lets you type with a mini keyboard on both the 42mm and 46mm models. It's not ideal, and I'm definitely not a huge fan, especially in the 42mm model, but it can definitely be useful in a pinch. The Series 10 has a speaker just like the SE, but the difference is that the Series 10 speaker can play music, which could potentially be handy if you don't have your phone nearby. The Series 10 also has an ECG reader, which is accessible by holding a finger on the digital crown for 30 seconds. It also has a temperature sensor, which is primarily used for ovulation tracking, but it can be used for spotting other health trends in the Health app as well. The Series 10 also provides a wider viewing angle, which is noticeable if you're looking for it. The Series 10 can get twice as bright too, which could be helpful if you're outside all day, but I usually keep my watches at like half the brightness, and I've never had any issues seeing it in the daylight. The Series 10 also has a third generation optical heart rate sensor compared to the second generation on the SE, but in side-by-side testing over the last few years, I haven't noticed a difference in real life. And the final thing worth mentioning is that the Series 10 has dual band Wi-Fi support. The Series 10's biggest feature upgrade from the SE is the always-on screen. To understand the importance of the always-on screen, let's first go over how the screen on the SE works. The SE screen turns black when it's not in use. Just twist your wrist towards your eyes to wake up the screen. It should happen naturally and not feel forced, and in my experience, it works about 98% of the time. You can also just tap on the display to light it up, or you can twist the digital crown to light it up slowly, and then twist it back to make it go black. On the other hand, the Series 10's display never fully turns off. It dims to a low brightness and drops the refresh rate to 1 Hz while inactive, but it stays visible for the time. Reactivating it to full brightness is easy with a wrist move, screen tap, or crown twist. The always-on display is awesome for quick glances down, like when you're working out and your full focus can't be on your watch. Just one less thing to think about when you're being active and you just want to see your stats or the time. However, in daily life, I find it more distracting than useful. And my wife felt the same way after testing it for a couple weeks herself. Personally, no matter which Apple Watch I'm wearing, I always keep the always-on display disabled. Not only do I find it overrated, but turning it off will give me some extra battery runtime. That said, I definitely realize that this opinion is in the minority. A lot of people love this feature. But for me, I just like my technology usage to be a little more intentional and not just always on and there. Over the years, Apple has increased the display size 3 different times by reducing the black bezel area around the screen and pushing the pixels closer to the edge while keeping the case size nearly the same. The SE2 has remained at 40mm and 44mm, while the Series 10 now offers a 42 and a 46 model. Despite the 2mm increase, the Series 10 doesn't feel any more bulky than the SE. The 42mm Series 10 has about 30% more pixels, and this 2mm increase in display size actually results in between 25 and 30% more pixels compared to the SE, which makes a pretty big difference. Interestingly, the smaller 42mm Series 10 packs roughly the same pixel count as the larger 44mm SE. When comparing the SE and the Series 10 side by side in their respective sizes, the difference in the black bezel area on the SE is immediately obvious. The SE's thicker bezel is hard to ignore, especially compared to the edge-to-edge display on the Series 10. In day-to-day use, the additional pixels on the Series 10 make text clearer, easier to read, and just improve the overall usability because more things can be shown on the screen at the same time. As I mentioned earlier, the smaller display in the SE is always the most jarring thing that I notice when I switch back to the SE from the newest model. The first day or two, I'm always super disappointed in how dated the watch feels. But after a couple of days, I just forget about it and move on with my life, and the SE works just fine for me. And I don't think first-time Apple Watch wearers will care much in the display size difference. However, if you're upgrading from an older model that has the 40mm screen already, that upgrade to the 42 will be really nice for you. It'll feel like a meaningful improvement, and it's a bigger deal than the always-on screen. The smaller Series 10 has about a 15% increase in battery size compared to the counterpart SE, while the larger Series 10 has about 10% extra battery compared to its counterpart. Both models are advertised as all-day battery, which in Apple's world means 18 hours. However, in my testing, both with the default settings, I was getting about 30 hours of runtime on each of the smaller models. And to make things fair, I tested the Series 10 with its always-on display disabled since the SE doesn't have that feature, and with the always-on turned off, the Series 10 will last about 36 hours, which is roughly 20% longer than the SE. Of course, your results will vary a ton based on usage. Ultimately, the difference between the Series 10 and the SE's battery is relatively minor. However, the slightly larger battery combined with the more efficient processing chip might make a difference if you plan to keep your watch for several years. For example, my wife's SE2 is 2.5 years old, and sometimes she can barely get through a full day before needing to be charged. Another key advantage to the Series 10 is its fast charging. It reaches 80% in about 30 minutes and fully charges in just an hour, compared to the SE2's 2.5 hour charge time. This faster charging is awesome for sleep tracking because it allows for just quick top-ups whenever throughout the day. The SE comes in 3 aluminum case colors, Midnight, Starlight, and Silver, with an Ion X glass display, while the Series 10 comes in Jet Black, Rose Gold, and Silver, with an upgraded Ion X display that's more crack resistant. If you're looking at the base model SE alongside the base model Series 10 for $399, the materials difference won't be significant. One interesting thing is that the Series 10 shaved off some of the bottom of the watch, making it 10% thinner than the SE. This makes it sit closer to the wrist, which is a subtle upgrade, but it's nice. On the higher end, the new titanium models with sapphire glass are an awesome investment if you're not constrained by budget. And they're definitely more durable and scratch resistant than the Ion X glass, and I've seen this firsthand. The premium materials in the higher end Apple Watches is always why I end up sticking with the higher end compared to the entry level. However, if you've never experienced the higher end materials, you'll probably be content with the SE. My first 4 Apple Watches were all with the aluminum and the Ion glass display, and I was perfectly happy with it. You just don't know what you don't know. Get the Apple Watch Series 10 if you want the always-on screen with more pixels that push closer to the edge of the watch. Features like precise phone finding, quick charging, the music speaker, and keyboard are all useful, but they're definitely not game changers. For me, the main draw of the Series 10 is the premium titanium models, but these start at $700 and they're not in everyone's budget. And I understand if you're watching this right now comparing the two watches, you're probably looking at the base models. That's where the decision comes more down to value. Get the Apple Watch SE 2 if this is your first ever Apple Watch and you want to save a little bit of money. It's about half the price of the Series 10. The SE is an excellent value. It offers similar speeds and all the key features found in the Series 10. And for owners of older Apple Watch models, it's a great option if you're fine with the standard aluminum and you don't mind the screen turning off when it's not in use. So that's all I have for this video. Let me know if you have any questions about these Apple Watches. I'll gladly answer them. Thanks for watching this one. I'm out.